Before he would be crucified, he had a last dinner with his disciples, a last conversation, a last lesson. Before he would be crucified and beaten, he had a last meal. And so he, with the disciples, sat together with them, and they ate bread. And he passed the bread around, and his hands, they didn't have any markings at this time. So he just passed the bread around with hands with no marks. They drank together, and they talked together. And I'm sure as he looked at the wine that was in front of him, he thought probably of the blood he was about to spill in a few hours. And so he was spending his time with the people he loved. He was spending the time with the people he loved together, and he wanted them with him. But I'm sure as he also looked at the wine, he thought of where it came from. And so here it goes, the last lesson I give to you. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you abide in me, and my love abides in you, you will bear fruit. But if you do not abide in me, as a branch, you will bear no fruit. And so the branches that bear no fruit will be cut off. But the branches that bear fruit will be pruned to bear more fruit. You will not bear fruit if you don't abide in me. And if you don't abide in me, God won't abide in you. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine how he said this to them, because he knew what was going to happen to them in a few. But listen to this. This is what he tells them before he goes. Now, if you know you're going to die, right? And you know you're going to get resurrected, so it's a little different, a little different. But if you know you're going to die, the words you say to the loved ones before you die are probably the ones you mean the most. You may mean every word you say. Jesus was honest all the time, so he meant every teaching. But when you know you're going to die, you're going to say goodbye, the message you want for the loved ones you leave behind momentarily is very important, critical. We should underline it, highlight it, embolden it, circle it. We should try to tattoo it on our hearts and tattoo it on our actions. They are what counts. So this lesson right here is what counts. And he says to them, listen, if you don't bear fruit, you're going to get cut off. But if you bear fruit, you're going to get pruned. Now, I know nothing about gardening, absolutely nothing. But have you ever seen the instruments used to prune? That's not okay. All right. Have you ever seen the instruments used to prune? Scissors, saws, knives, hooks. Those instruments are sharp, and they are meant for cutting. The instruments to prune are sharp, and they are meant for cutting. So, what he's saying to them is, if you don't bear fruit, you're going to get cut. And if you bear fruit, you're going to get cut. Either way it goes, you're going to get cut. But one cutting will be for your growth, will be for your nourishment, and will be for your own ability to let God use you to bear fruit. The other cutting will be because you have been useless, and therefore you are tossed away. As Christians, we worship and serve God not because we get a free, get-out-of-jail-free card from suffering, struggle, and pain. Quite honestly, the same struggle that we will endure as non-Christians, we will endure as Christians. Being a disciple of Jesus, as he tells his disciples, he's telling them, you're going to get cut, my friends. But it is pruning. When you prune something, I had to look this up and ask a bunch of people who know better. So here we go. When you prune something, what you do is you cut so that you can prevent infection. So if something is infected in the tree or the vine, you cut where it may be infected so that the infection doesn't go over the entire vine and so that the vine doesn't die. So pruning can be used to prevent infection. Pruning can be used because vines are very wild things. Have you ever seen a building where it has been left alone and you just see vines all over the walls? Vines just grow all over the place. They just grow. So sometimes you need pruning to guide where you are going to place the vine. Guide it so that the growth can be intentional. Sometimes, though, you prune because there is a branch that is dead. It is dead. But the nourishment still goes into the dead branch. Which means that the branches that are living don't get as much nourishment as they could get because the dead branch is sucking up nourishment it won't use. And so you prune, and it's an act of cutting in order for you to grow, in order for you to live, in order for you to bear fruit, in order for you to give glory to God through who you become. What Jesus is saying to them is the struggle is unavoidable. But if you want to grow in God, that struggle will be for your growth. And when you struggle for your growth, what you end up having is God's joy. When you know who the Lord is, and I said, I was blessed to be able to speak, at an event, and I had to say words to a 13-year-old. So I was thinking back to when I was 13. What do I say to a 13-year-old that has helped me survive? What do I say that what things have people told me when I was younger that actually have stood the test of time? Because most advice is awful, terrible advice, right? You can take it or leave it. The moment you hear it is the moment your time has been wasted. Terrible advice, right? But what helped me? And this is it. When you want to abide in God, when you want to seek God, and when you begin to seek God through prayer, through devotion, through saying, Lord, here I am. What happens is you don't avoid the pain or the struggle. But when you know who the Lord is, God reveals to you who you are. And when you know who you are in God, you feel the pain, but the pain bothers you less. You feel the struggle, but the struggle bothers you less. You get knocked down, but you know you can get up every time. And when you know that, you are not overcome by the pain, you are not defeated by the struggle, you are not knocked down forever by the blow. But you realize because I am abiding in God, God won't protect me from it all, but God will strengthen me from it. And though I'm hurting now, this pain won't bother me as much because I know that God can use this for my blessing, but also for the blessing of those around me. Pruning. It's for your growth. We as Christians, when you hear a message that says you don't have to struggle to grow, or healing involves no pain, that is a hustle. When you gotta heal, especially when you have a body and a mind and a soul, healing, there's always going to be some pain. You take pain medications and all that stuff to help it out, But after some time, whenever you're recovering, there's always some pain in healing. But when you know you're healing, it may bother you, but it won't bother you as much. But anybody who sells you a healing where there's no pain is giving you a hustle. Anybody who sells you a story that you can grow without any struggle is giving you awesome. But in our faith, what Jesus is telling his disciples is, I love y'all. And I want y'all to grow. So I will be upfront with you. It will be a cutting. But the cutting will be for your growth. For know when you go through what you go through, when you struggle with what you struggle with, when God puts in situations that you may not know why you're being put in, just know that you remain in the gardener's hands. And when you remain in the gardener's hands, it will be for your